Okay. Pop out chat. Move it over here and make it bigger. Hello. Hi everyone. Yes, I am broadcasting now. Yay! As usual, it's sponsored by Anycubic, makers of the Photon, because that's what I use to print out figures now. Yay! Excellent. And I've gone live. Okay, days. Now, okay. I'm just gonna wait just a few minutes just to get a couple more people in here because I went live a little early. So we're just waiting a little bit. I'm gonna get some masodi. Now, I'd first like to apologize for lack of Tuesday broadcast. I kinda had a massive migraine. Now, my migraines are usually not. They're usually what are called acephalgic. What that means is I have all of the side effects without the actual headache part. I have vision loss, I have a numbness, I have sensitivity to light and sound, and for about a day after, I have sensitivity to sudden movement. You know, it's like I do this, and it feels like there's a gnome inside my skull with a hammer going, "Don't move." I said, "Don't move." So, I'm going to be doing tonight what I was going to be doing back on Tuesday. I also just realized that I forgot to switch accounts. I'm not logged in on the proper account for this. Yeah. So we go to pop out chat. There we go. Yeah, see, in my default, for some bizarre reason, my default identity is not a mod on my channel. You see him, don't you? You see the little fuzz butt. Right here. Book. Go figure. Anyway. So what I'm going to be doing, besides tripping over my tongue, what I'm going to be doing tonight is I'm going to be making a couple props to show how I make them, since the last time I did this, I was using a different method for showing my screen, and you couldn't see some of the things that would pop up, some of the menus and that. So this time I'm going to be doing it in such a way that you can. Also, the scimitar, Hollywood scimitar, and the blaster gun that I make tonight will be added to the base files that people who are at the top tier of my Patreon get. And so I'll be, those who just recently added themselves to the top tier of my Patreon, and hello Kim, and those who are already have been, I will be sending you a message later tonight with the link to the newest version of the files. Yay! So, I guess first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to switch over. Yeah, woot! I'm going to switch over to 3D Studio Max. Bing! Brrr. Ooh, isn't that fun, fancy? You can actually see a delay between me down here and them up there. Anyway, this is the base geometry for my male figure. And this is what I use, since 90% of the figures I make are male, because monsters tend to be male. This is what I use to base the weapons. Now, the other thing I'm going to do, I'm going to import a pre-existing model. The reason for this is it's a place for it to be. Okay, I don't need a mask for the king in yellow. No, we're going to old. And let's just make that the comma, the right-hand comma, just because we want it to be in the spot. Okay, there we go. What am I doing? Yeah, okay, so that's just so we can see where it is. And the way we're going to do that is coming over here, and we're going to select by vertex. Okay, so we then look, and its x is negative 13.228, and its z is 15.999. In 3D graphics, unlike printing, z is in and out. Y is up and down. It's a thing. Go figure. So anyway, that tells us where we need to put our handles and things like that. Hide selected. Bing. Okay, that was just for that purpose. Alright, now we are going to create a cylinder that's going to be the handle. It's very simple. And we're going to bring it back a bit. And then we're going to, first of all, make it only 3 polygons high and only 10 around. It's going to get smoothed out. But one thing you'll notice, it has an n-gon on the cap. What that means is most programs don't like it when a polygon has more than 4 sides. With 4 sides, you can either have it bend this way, if you have to bend it, or this way. With more than 4 sides, you've got a problem there. So what we're going to do is we're going to make the cap have 2 segments. Oh look, it all of a sudden has no more n-gons. Now, we're going to pull this out to just behind the hand, and then we're going to stretch it to be just a bit longer than the hand. And we need to move this to negative 13.222 and negative 15.999. And it's now in position. Okay. And I need to change the color so I can see it when I unclick it. Let's make it yellow. Just because, yeah. Excuse me. Yeah, and hello Lily Moon and Mark Moore. Now, what I'm going to do, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to images.google.com, because one thing you should always have is reference material. And I'm going to look up Hollywood scimitar. And that's basically what you see in like the old movies. Any number of these could be the Hollywood style scimitar. But I'm thinking the one that's probably closest to what most people see when they think Arabian Nights is something akin to this horrible monstrosity. It is completely and utterly unrealistic to almost any culture. But it's what people think of because it's what Hollywood made. So, I'm going back here. Now what this means is I actually need to now take this, move it back a bit, and make it even longer. Because what's going to happen is we're now going to select all of these edges and we're going to add in a new loop using what's called connect. Bing! Now that edge loop defines the front and back now. Now I've got to collapse it, reset it because it's right now stretched. Collapse all. And now I'm going to select all of these polygons and all of these polygons. To better show you, down here on the bottom, I did not select the cap on the front, but I did select the cap on the back. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to extrude them out by local normal. Normal is the direction that the corners point. That's good enough for the... no, we need to make it a little bit thicker. And then we're going to deselect the back. We're going to make it a little bit wider here, because we need to make it wider for the blade, and then we're going to make it a little bit thicker because we want to make sure it'll print well. Now I'm going to hide our body, and you'll see what we have here. Right now it looks good, but if we smooth it, it doesn't quite work. So what we're going to do, first of all, we're going to select these, compress them in a little bit, and then make them a little bit bigger around. If this was the real world, we'd only do that from the top-down view, because you want it to be a kind of an oval shape grip. Now what we're going to do, we're going to select here, we're going to deselect these two, because we only want to, we're gonna, okay, so that should be selecting 3 edges selected. Oh yeah, here, erase that. Yeah, 2 edges selected. We hit loop. Now to show you what got selected, you can see in here these are selected red, and the same thing back here. We're going to chamfer it. What that's going to do, I'm going to change that to 0.01. By adding those extra edge loops, it's turning one sharp angle into an angle that has 2 or more lines. Now when we hit Mesh Smooth, we're keeping that sharp angle where the crossguard and handle meet. Now we also want to make it a somewhat not quite as rounded, but still not sharp everywhere else. So we're going to ring select and connect. Now when I hit that Mesh Smooth, it's rounded at the rim, but not quite as, well, I guess you could say, no, we got to add one more edge loop. The more edge loops you add, the more the current shape is maintained. There we go. That's what we want for the handle. Oh, no it isn't. I remember what else we needed to do, because of the way that Hollywood views things. There is a trope called reality is unrealistic. And it is so true here. So now what we're going to do is we're going to compress it just a little bit. Yeah, that's good. And now we're going to mesh smooth it. Bing! There we go. Collapse all. I'm going to zoom out. Now, How long is a scimitar? How long do you want it to be? Yay. So we're going to go ahead and unhide him. We're also going to go ahead and we're going to import another prop. This time we're going to import an arming sword. The reason for this is typical one-handed slashing weapon. We want it to be about the same size, or about the same length. So we're just going to use this as a sample length. Now, looking at this, this does mean that I probably should go ahead and let's grow the selection. Hide the body, because I need to be able to see what I got selected. Z. Let's grow it a little bit more. Okay, now, just to give it a nice size comparison, I. Control I to invert the selection. And let's expand this. And then we're going to change it up to be polygon groups, because these will scale independently. And make them a little bit bigger this way. Now we're going to vertexes and scale them that way so they stay as even as possible. There. Now we need to make the blade, because that's pretty much all we're going to need for the basic actually no, we need to do one more thing. I just noticed something. For the basic scimitar, because we can always come back in when we actually are sculpting somebody with the scimitar and add details. So when we're making weapons, we only make the basic undetailed version. Okay? The exception to this is things like guns, where the details will always be the same. Now, what we need to do is we need to make ourselves the blade. And we're going to make the blade start off looking kind of like a sax. Do y'all know what a sax is? I'm going to start off with the blade being kind of about here and coming out. This is a box, and I'm just... It's about the same height. Meanwhile, let me go ahead and rotate this 45 degrees so it's even, so I can make sure that the box is about the same thickness. We can make them thinner thanks to, if you're printing for resin, but we want to make sure our prints will work for FDM as well. So, and we want to make the width have 2 segments, because this will be the blade edge. Sax, or scram sax. It's an old Saxon, which is where they got their names from, and Viking, Nordic, basically Norse or Celtic blade type that is pretty much straight, single-edged, and then suddenly has a drop tip. It sometimes might have a false edge on the back, on the front, to make it easier to stab with. Anyway, we're going to go ahead and make that edible poly. Now, one thing we're going to do, we're going to go ahead and make it narrower at the base. Thank you, Hollywood. We're also going to take here and pull it back a bit. and here and pull it back a bit. Actually, we need to pull this one back a bit more. We need to pull it all a bit more. Thank you, Hollywood. We're then going to make one selection here and connect. And we're going to bring it in and out. In and out. And now the next thing we're going to do is we're going to select that same ring again. We're going to chamfer it, but this time much wide. No, we're not. We're going to select these edges and connect them. Then select this one and relax it. Oh. Forgot. Loop. There we go. Now relax it. No. That's not doing right. We'll just do it manually. Bring this one back out to there, and this one back out to there, just to give it a bit of a curve. Not a big one, just a bit of one. Now, yeah, it's a Sax or a Scramtax. It's where the Saxons got their name. Yeah. Now we're going to go up here, and there's a bend modifier. And we're going to play around until we see which way we want it. Okay, first try. We got it to bend in the right direction. Now we're going to collapse all. We're going to now select each one of these and shrink them a bit more just to get that exaggerated swell that Hollywood scimitars have. We're then going to select all of this. We're going to rotate it a little because it was too far back for Hollywood's simi. And a little bit more. There we go. And then the last thing we're going to do is we're going to select this vertex and move it back a bit. Okay. The top-down shape is about right, but we need to make sure that it has a blade edge. Oh, I see. I almost forgot something. Sorry. We're going to smooth out this particular edge right here, because what we're going to do, we're going to use chamfer to do it. Because otherwise we won't have a nice curve to this front end. We're going to lose it when we sharpen the edge. And we're trying to blend this around. Okay, now what we're going to do, we're going to select the vertexes on the absolute edge. Only those that are the edge. And we're going to scale them in the Y direction, up and down, remember, to 0.5%. And right now that makes it look like it's got a rather significant cut for that edge, but that doesn't look right to me. So I'm going to loop and then select those vertexes, and I'm going to make it 50.25. That's basically half the distance. Oh, that was the wrong way. That was X instead of Y. 50.25. There we go. Now I have to select certain edges in order to sharpen them. Loop Z. I now chamfer them at 0.001 without changing the 0.01 with only one segment. And now when I hit Mesh Smooth a couple times, oh, look at that. It really looks like a Hollywood scimitar now. Now we need to do a couple more shaping things, and what we're going to do is we're going to use what's called a taper. The first thing we're going to do is we need to make it actually, if you'll look at the arming sword, you'll see that it doesn't just get narrower from a top-down view, it also gets narrower from a side-to-side view. We want to do the same thing with this. So with the taper, we're going to taper it down, but we only want it to affect one side. That Y rather. And we collapse it. We then need to do one other thing because it's still too wide at the base for that really scimitar-y look. So we're going to do it in the opposite direction, but only on the X. And then we're going to narrow it by simply scaling it. There. And then reset transform, collapse all, and let's get a little bit of a closer look to it. There, see? We have a basic scimitar. And when we put this into somebody's hands, we can always add in little decorations at the tip here or on the pommel. In fact, very often there would be a gem on each side of the pommel. And so what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and make it all one group. Notice that the whole thing turned yellow. Now there's one problem. Two problems. Control Z, undo. I forgot to make sure that the box was at the right spot. 13.222 and 15.999. There, you notice it actually moved up here. Yeah, now we're going to attach them. But if we make our body visible, you'll see if we put it in his hand and we closed his hand, it would be in the wrong direction. He'd be holding it with the blade like this, which doesn't cut very well. So we're going to zoom out so I can see the gizmo here that's flashing, and we're going to rotate it 45 degrees. There. Now it's following the motion of the arm. Gonna hide him again. And we have our scimitar for the right hand. Well, we need to make one for the left hand. So I'm going to move its pivot point to 0x. It doesn't move the geometry, just the pivot point. Now up here, the mirror. I click this and it makes it negative scales it. Make it a copy instead. Now there's a problem with doing that, but it's easily fixed. You see, when it mirrors, it doesn't actually build a mirror image. Instead, whichever axis you made that mirror along, it makes it negative. Like if it's 4 inches wide, it's now negative 4 inches wide. Can't do that in reality, but you can in 3D. So what we do is we go ahead, we reset the transform, and you see how it doesn't look right. So we hit normals. Inverts the normals. It's now right side out again, and it's now exactly what we need it to be. So we're going to export this as an OBJ format. And we're going to Resculpt Minis props. I'm going to put it under X, just because. And that will be Hollywood Scimitar L hand. L hand for left hand. Export, and it gives me this total number of vertexes, total number of quads. Done. And now this one, file, export, selected. We're going to call this Hollywood Scimitar R hand for right hand. Export. Done. Bing. And let's wake him back up. And hello, Todd. Welcome. Now what we're going to do is we're going into Daz Studio. Bing, here it is. Yay! And we're going to go ahead and select both hands. We're then going to also make sure to open up the selection for all the fingers. We're going to load in the left. We're going to load in, just because, a weapon for each hand. The reason I did this... Oh, yeah, I forgot to have him selected. Load in a weapon for each hand. The reason I did this is because when it loads in these weapons, it automatically poses the hand. You'll see how that works in just a minute. So now File, Import. And we're going to, no, Desktop, Home, Meshes, Resculpt Minis, Props, X. Let's start with the left hand. Accept. Now, you'll notice that it's already, because I put the handle in the same spot, it's already posed to hold that weapon. Well, we take it and we drag it up to that hand, the left hand. Yay! We has a scimitar, right? Well, now we're going to File, Save As, Support Asset, Figure and Prop Assets. And we're saving this into the props as Hollywood Scimitar L hand. Oh. Hollywood Scimitar L hand. Save. Now here, this is probably new for most of y'all. Vendor name is Validar. That's my name. Product name, exclamation point, miniatures. Item name is staying the same. I hit accept, and it saves the information on how to load it in here. Yeah, here it is, right here. Hollywood Scimitar. Oh, you can't see it because of my head. But it loads in down here in the thing. It also creates a thumbnail based on what is on this screen at the time that it gets saved. The problem is, that's just a prop. It'll load in where the hand is, but it won't pose the hand around it. I'd still have to go back in. So what I do instead, I click on hand all the way down to the Hollywood Scimitar using a shift. So when I click point A to point B, it selects all those in between. File, Save As, Wearable Preset. And I'm going to use Select Modified. I go back and I save over top of the prop. Now the reason I'm doing this, I had to make the prop in the first place so that the geometry data will be saved to my data folder. This will call on the geometry data I already created, and will also, file is that already exists, yes, I want to overwrite it. I then go up here to pose, include pose settings in preset, and I unselect everything. Expand all. Okay, I can close neck. I can close arc collar. I click on left hand, and every child of the left hand is selected. This includes its translation, rotation, scaling, and other bits and bobs. And I click accept. And it has saved only the hand and the scimitar. Now, the reason why I have it dragged up under the hand is so that I can do this. As I pose, he can poke himself in the eye, or almost poke himself in the eye with a point. Now, let's go ahead and zero the figure. Zero figure. Bing! And his hand has gone back straight. I'll go back to my content library and I go to the Hollywood Scimitar left hand, and it loads in the right spot with the hand posed. So yay, it works. Edit figure. Yeah, zero figure pose is a great way to reset just the pose if you're working on how to do that. Now we do have to come back in here and load in, let's say, a right-handed weapon of some kind, so that we can now load in and file, import Hollywood Scimitar R hand, and we drag that up to the right hand up here. Okay, now we do the same thing we did before. File, save as, support asset, figure and prop assets. I'm going to select this just so that I can then edit the file name, save a lot of typing. Product name, miniatures, accept. Now if I had ever had to save this on top of itself, it'll automatically fill in that product name miniatures, but I don't have to. Now select these, file, save as, wearables preset, and I'm going to save it on top of itself. Pose, include pose settings, but turn them off. Expand all, hide from the neck up, and there's the right hand. Accept. And that's all there is to making just a basic prop. But blades and swords are actually pretty simple to make. They're wedges and cylinders and occasional boxes, and that's really it. In fancier is guns. Edit figure, zero pose. And so what we're going to do now is I'm going to pop back to this just for a moment, because what I'm going to do is I'm going to pull up some reference material on my hard drive, and I don't want it to be seen digging through those various folders, because some of it is for my day job, which has some proprietary things. No, it's not like that. Dirty minds, I swear. And while I'm doing that, I can also grab myself my last can. Gotta hit the store tomorrow. Okay. Oh, come on. I always take this off and throw it away separately. Contrary to popular belief, there really isn't one of those things where you save enough can tabs. There's a couple on rare occasions that they do, but one of my favorite prints I've ever made. I swear. Use it literally every day. Now, I'll be talking to y'all while I'm digging around for this. I mentioned this earlier. Reference material is one of the most important things you can have. Whether it's for the outfit that you're going to be sculpting, for the weapon, for anything. If you're going to start sculpting original creatures, like a wolf drake that your villains will ride. Yes, there's no such thing as a wolf drake, but there are wolves, big cats, dinosaurs, birds, reptiles, and you can get reference material. I have possibly the best reference material for that right here. You can't read it because of the glare, but it's the Cyclopedia Anatomicae. And what this includes is, let's say for a horse, musculature, the facial features, structures, bones, skeletal landmarks, and how the bones move in different poses. By combining, let's say, a wolf, bits of a big cat, just to make it a little bit more alien than a wolf, because when you combine wolf and combine canine and feline, it looks weird. A little bit of reptile, heck, maybe even a little bit of cow for that thick, heavy neck. You know, you start getting something that looks fantasy, but also looks like it could exist. I mean, perfect example. Have y'all seen the hunting drake that I've made? And because the hunting drake is not a realistic, real critter, but it could be. It looks like it could be. So, when working on a hunting drake, hiccups, I made sure to make everything anatomically possible. It's on my Thingiverse page. It's one of my oldest sculpts that I put online. I had originally created it for a different work. My things. Be more. Keep forgetting how many of these daggone things I got. Here we go. Let's copy, and it's right here. Well, my thing about owlbears is that most owlbears look stupid because of the way they just slap an owl head on a bear. No, you want to combine, like, its upper torso would be different from a bear. Its lower torso would be different. It would be somewhat more ape-like in build, more likely, than bear-like. But that right there, that is what happens when you combine a jaguar, a dinosaur, and a crocodile. You get my hunting drake. And if you go to the the blue, the thingy view of the blue, load it up, you can spin it around and see what I mean about how it still follows anatomical rules, but it's not something that exists in reality. Anyway, I have a decent bit of a reference picture, so I'm going to go ahead and, oh no, that's not, I can't use that. I'm not going to, now I will say this, I am not going to make it exactly like what you're about to see, simply because it, copyrighted. I want to make something that's similar and in the style of. Never make exact copies of something, because that can be an issue. It could be an issue. Gesundheit. Instead, what you want to do is you want to take design elements, maybe proportions, or like that's got a really cool looking handle, or that's got some really fancy looking barrel, or what is that? I don't know, but it looks like it does something cool. It's also a good idea to keep in mind what does what on a gun. And yeah, so what I'm going to do, this is going to be a drum-fed submachine gun, sci-fi variant. Bang. And it's actually going to be hard to see because it's up here left is what's inspiring me. We zoom in really close. Move up and over. There. That is what is the inspiration. So, what we need to do is we need to make the handle. Now, on a miniature, you don't need to make a fancy handle like this with the grooves and the... You just need a bar that the hand is going to be sticking in the hand. It doesn't need to be ergonomic because it's going to be hidden by the hand as it is. Now, the problem is, whereas most weapons are a straight line out from the hand, most handguns, the handle is at an angle. It's not like, you don't hold a gun like this. You hold it like that. You can see that it's almost a 20 to 30 degree angle. Sometimes it's more than that, especially for things like, flintlocks. And I need to make flintlocks for this, for miniatures. Yay! As I just reminded. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to make a block in the right place, then I'm going to pivot it. And then I'm going to build the rest of the gun around it. Now, like other weapons, guns need to be much bigger in proportion. Let me see, where is it? A case in the point. Where is that daggum scout? No. Aha, here he is. Yes. I made a gun for my miniatures that I thought was positively huge. I thought it was, make Dirty Harry look, totally wimpy. Well, let me show you how wrong I was. Let's zoom in. This guy. When you compare it to something like your typical Warhammer character, that looks like a 22. The gun up here. It's tiny. It barely looks like a gun at all. Go figure. So, guns need to be big. That's why the bolter's so honkin' huge. That's why, the whole 9 yards. Exactly, Mark. Soda. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead, like I said, and make a box. Not quite that big. Pull it out. It needs to be only 1 by 1 by 1. We're going to pull it in so that it sticks a little bit out below the hand. And then comes out to about there. You know, a little bit longer. Edible poly. And what we're going to do now is I'm going to first rotate it 45. I'm going to make sure that it's rotating locally. And then there we go, that's sitting right. So now we're going to rotate it based on view. And rotate it 45 back. And you see it's at an angle. We're going to hide the body. We're going to hide the body! And that is going to be basically the entirety of the handle of this gun. Because unless you decide to stick it on his thigh, at which point I hope you're going to be putting a holster around it. Why couldn't I not think of that word? Excuse me. Pulling up this image. Okay. There's now going to be... We need to move this. Remember the height was at 16 or at 15.999. We're just going to make that 16. 1,000th of a millimeter is not going to matter. 1 nanometer is not going to change that much. Okay, now we're going to make another box. This one is up here. It'll be a good bit wider. Now, we bring this over, and we can make it a little bit longer, because it needs to be longer. So we go to that height. There we go. And we're going to make sure it has 2 height segments. 3 rather, yeah, 3. Edible poly. We then bring this one over to here. Room for the fingers to fit through. And this one back a little. This one out just a little bit more. And now once again we make sure that it's the center height is at 16. Bring it down a little bit. Now what we're going to do is we're going to select that bottom one here. We're going to extrude it out, not 10 millimeters, but a few. There. And then we're going to select here and bring it down a bit. And we already have a basic, well, it's a basic handgun shape. I think we can go ahead and afford to make it a bit wider than this. Yeah, that's about right. Now what we're going to do, looking back at this picture, we see it's got all sorts of different little bidgets and widgets between the flat of that, well, it's called receiver, and the barrel. Well, come back here. Make it a bit brighter to see when I... Yeah, there we go. Well, before we do that, we're going to select all of the edges and we're going to add in 2 segments. But we're going to make it a little bit wider, because what we're going to do is we're going to select that one. We're going to extrude it out a little bit and make it just a little narrow. Then, from this view, we're going to make it a little less wide and bring it back that is basically your laser sights. Yeah, it's laser sights. That's it. That's the ticket. Basically, it's something fancy to look cool. We're going to go ahead and select here. We're going to hit connect, but go back down to 1. And we're going to do something similar with this one. Extrude, and it extrudes out the same distance because we're not changing the numbers. And bring it down. And then we're going to just select this one because we want it to be a bit different. Yeah. And it's already got sights. Now I'm going to select the front polygons. The entirety of the front face. And I'm going to inset it. What that means is it doesn't move in or out. It just slides along its own face and gets smaller. And it gets smaller than its own measurements, it gets negative. So for example, slide it in just a little bit. There we go. A little bit too much. Let's make it 0.45. There we go. Now I'm going to extrude it out. I'm going to bring it in a little bit more. Now I'm going to inset it. And I'm going to shrink it because it's, yeah, and move it up. Actually, what I really should do is move the whole thing up and make it wider this way, because we want as much room as possible for the barrel itself. Okay. That just gives us, that's something that's going to be hard to see on FDM, but it's going to come out really nice on resin. And that is the basics of the body of our gun, except we need to do one further thing. I'm going to add in another edge. Let's go ahead and shift it over here a little bit more. And what this is going to be kind of next. We're going to change them both to zeros and change it to 2 segments, a little narrow and up a little bit closer to the top. This is going to be where we are going to extrude in, not out, but in our ejection port. Now that's all we're going to do on this specific piece of geometry, so we're going to go ahead and select all of the edges, all of them, and we're going to chamfer them all 0.01. Now when I hit mesh smooth, this is what it looks like after 2 mesh smooths. Nice and sharp edges, but not so sharp that they are collapse all. And having done it, I think we need to go ahead and make it wider. Yeah, that should be good, because it's not going to be very big. We also need to go ahead, I'm going to select these vertexes. I am then going to use what's called soft selection. I don't know if it has something similar in other programs, but it basically selects everything within a certain distance. There we go. Let's bring it in just a little bit more until it's no longer selecting that edge. Okay. Now we're going to change the pinch and bubble. You can see this curve right here, this parabolic arc. We don't want that to be a parabolic arc. We want it to be a flat V. So 0.333 pinch tightens the top, and 0.333 bubble lifts the bottom. So it's now a perfectly even selection. I grab here, I drag it out, and we have a slightly longer receiver. Now I'm going to go back to cylinder, and I'm going to select right about even with where I had that ejection port, and make a really big barrel, really long one too. And I grab it and I drag it over, and I make sure that it's at 16 height. I also note that it is too large. So I'm going to shrink it ever so slightly. And I'm going to drop that height segments. I don't need those height segments for this. And I collapse the editable poly. I then look in the center, select here, deselect back here, and when I hit Control Polygon, it takes my selection of a vertex, turns it into a selection of a polygon. That's just a little fancy trick for 3D Studio Max. I'm now going to extrude it inward, not Squidward, inward, just a little bit. Just enough to get that impression, because if we go too far it'll make it a weak print. We want it to be a detail, not a... Okay, I'm going to select both of those and deselect the one on the back, and then select both of these. Loop and chamfer 0.001, but with two edges. With a ring, you can do two edges instead of just one, and that makes it a sharper chamfer. Mesh smooth 1, 2. Okay, I want to do one last thing. Let's go ahead. I select those. I hit connect to 95. And that brings two edge loops really close to the edges, so that now when I hit mesh smooth, it doesn't give any kind of warping or change back here. But now we have our receiver and barrel. Next up will be our nice little drum magazine. Oh. No, I didn't. Sorry. I've been building this entire gun, and I didn't bother to check to see. Yeah. Yay. I have a bad habit of doing that, I must confess. But yeah, now it's time. I described exactly what I did, but you couldn't see a darn thing of it. Okay, so we need to make our ammo drum. So it's going to be actually a little bit higher up than you'd think, because it's got to have the center of rotation. Yeah. Let's bring it down to here, make it here. Let's bring it, and it's going to be about here. We're going to actually, yeah, that's still just a little too big. So let's bring that radius down just a bit, because we want it to look cool, not, you know, outrageous. And this is where it's going to be. We make sure that its height is at 16. Now, we're going to make it a edible poly. I'm going to select it here. I'm actually going to bring it forward. And I'm going to shrink it. Only the front edge. Just a bit. Now, when we look, it's still overlapping good. And that is our drum magazine for our pistol. We are now going to come down here and select the edges, loop, and we're going to chamfer them at a 0.001, 001, not 110, and 2 layers. Now when we hit mesh smooth, 1, 2, yep, there we go. And the next thing that we got to do is make sure it's, yeah, it's at 16. Okay. This is currently the basis for our gun. We're going to go ahead and add on a couple short cylinders that will be used to represent rivets. Because for some reason sci-fi guns have rivets. Now we got to make them kind of big. Again, because they won't show up if you don't. And let's make it a little, not quite that big. 0.5 millimeter should be good. Actually 0.35. And let's make its height. Make its height so it's poking up at least that far above. Okay. We're going to change it from 10 sides to 8. And edible poly. Select these. Loop. Chamfer. 0.001, but only 1. And then we're going to mesh smooth it. Oh, no, we don't want to bend it. We want to mesh smooth it. Yeah. And then we're just simply going to drag them, shift drag to make copies at various spots where you'd think it would be, and then like an occasional random that doesn't look like it would be, should be there. Like this one, actually we want to put it right in front of the thingy, and let's make this one a bit bigger because this one's going to be the brain, thank you, the ejection button, eject the ammo drum. Now we're going to bring this back over to here, copy, and down to here, copy. And that's mostly what you would need. You would put anything else, well, we need to make some more down here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to select and attach that one, that one, that one, that one, that one, but not the ammo. Yeah, the ammo drum too. Okay, yay! Now I'm going to select the actual body, turn off soft selection, and detach it. The reason I did that is that now this one has the same, the rivets have the same Y coordinate as the body, which is 16 even. I'm now going to mirror them in the Y. Reset transform, and normals inverted. Collapse all. And now we've got rivets on both sides of the gun. And that's pretty much the gun. So we're going to go ahead, take for the handle, and we'll make sure that we select all of them, chamfer 0.001, accept, and then mesh smooth it once, twice, collapse all. and attach everything else. It's now a one color, a single solid piece. This cannot be printed as it is. It is multiple intersecting geometries, and a lot of slicers don't like that. Anyway, what we're now going to do is we're going to unhide the hand. And we are going to move our pivot so that's roughly in the center of where the hand would be. Excuse me. And now we're going to rotate 45 degrees. Whoop, one too many. And just to double check, I'm hitting F12. Okay. Now, I hit Z. Just to see how this looks with him. And it looks big. It looks really big. This is bigger than a pistol, but it's about the right size for an SMG. So we can go ahead and call this a sci-fi submachine gun. So let's hide Mr. Waja. And we now need to take this and move its center over to 0x. And mirror it. Oop, wrong direction. Yes, I make mistakes. Good Game Hunters, did you know that That's What She Said is the second oldest known joke? The oldest known Greek comedy. The very first joke was a Yo Mama joke. The very second joke was That's What She Said. So I'm not even making a joke with that. That is one of the oldest in the book. Literally. Okay. And as before, we go over here and reset selected and then reverse the normals again, and we have it properly oriented. Now, file, export selected. This is still an X. We're going to call it Techie SMG L hand. So that's the left hand version. Because you can tell because it's got the ejection port on the outside for the left hand. Yeah, ejection ports, just to let you know, if you pick up a fancy sci-fi gun that's not a revolver like this fancy sci-fi gun, the ejection port will be to the outside. If I'm firing from here, an ejection port here would cause hot brass to fly in my face. An ejection port here, it'll fly out that way. And vice versa. So handed weapons make sense. Pistols can be handed. Alright, and now I'm going to select this one. File, export, selected. I'm just going to select it and change the name from L hand to R hand. Export. Whee! Now, we go back to Dev Studio. Now we're going to pretend that we've never made a high-tech gun before. Which would be a complete and utter lie, but we're going to pretend. So File, Import the left-hand gun. The left-hand gun. And we go ahead and we parent it to the left hand. The problem is, the hand does not look like it's holding it. So now it is time for us to create the pose for the hand to make it look like it's holding it. We're going to start off with the thumb. The thumb, side to side, is actually kind of bringing it down a bit, and bending brings it closer to the palm. And as you can see, this gun is not in the right spot for us to reach well. So I'm going to the back view. And we're going to move it so that it's in the good spot for the thumb to reach. There we go. And we're going back to perspective. And we're going to side to side it there. That's good. And then we're going to twist it a little bit, just so that the tip of the thumb is also resting against the handle. Okay. Now, this is not a normal hand. These fingers are all actually following a single bone. So what I'm going to do is I'm first going to bend them in the general direction of where they need to be. Then I'm going to twist them and then bend them out a little. Then I'm going to select the tips of the fingers and bend them. The end result is, unless you're looking for a trigger finger, it looks like he's actually holding the gun. That is what we want to do. Now we want to have that same exact pose on the right side. So we select left hand through L finger. Once again, we click left hand, shift click, left finger 2. And now, file, symmetry. Or not file, but this little thingy right here. You go down to symmetry. Left to right, the ones that are selected. Oh, it'll only do the left hand itself. So we go up here to all. Right there. And now we go to symmetry. Accept. And it just did the same thing with that hand. We're not going to bother with loading in the other SMG for right now. So we're going to take that, file, save as, and now we go through pretty much everything we did with the scimitars. Save as, figure, prop assets. And this is going to be in my tech directory. So that's going to be techie SMG L hand. Save. Miniatures. Accept. And then select up through the hand. File, save as, hierarchical. No, we want wearables preset. Not hierarchical. Hierarchical. Or character preset. We want wearables. I'm going to save it. On top of... Oh wait, that's right. We got to go to deck. Techie SMG left hand. Yes, we want to overwrite it. Go to pose, include pose, deselect, expand all. Unexpand the neck and the right collar, and then click on the left hand. Accept. Yay! That SMG is done. And now we go to File, Import, Techie SMG right hand. And since we mirrored the hand, it's already in proper position. Yay! So now we have to parent it. Click and drag up to right hand. File, save as, support asset, figure prop assets, select it and change that L hand to an R hand. Save. And product name, to miniatures. Accept. Now we select the hand through the SMG. File, save as, wearables preset. We save over top of that. Yes. Pose, include pose settings, deselect, and expand all. Hot close from the neck up, and choose the right hand. Accept. Oh, wait a minute. That's right, I knew I forgot something. I forgot to move there. Forgot to do that. Fortunately, all I have to do now is File, Save As, Wearables Preset, SMG right hand, yes, Pose, expand all, unexpand the neck, and select the hand, accept. And now, if I go into my content library, and I go into under People, Miniatures Based CO, Props, Tech. Well, looky here, Assault Rifle left hand and Assault Rifle R hand. That's not it. Oh, here they are. Techie SMG left hand, Techie SMG right hand. Yay! What was the assault rifle? Oh yeah, I made an M16. I forgot there's an M16. Hee hee. Anyway. That is how I make the props. A friend of mine asked me earlier if making props, or anything really, for 3D printing was like making video game models. And I had to sit there and think, it's actually pretty much the opposite. You know, because in a video game model, you want a low polygon count and all of the details in the textures. Well, most of the detail, much of it, depending on what kind of game. Like a real-time strategy has so many figures on the board. Same thing with an MMO. That you want most of your detail in the textures. Whereas a one-on-one fighting game, you can have a lot more in the geometry. With 3D printing, you have no textures. You need everything in the geometry. I mean, it's just, you can't cheat with textures. You have to have it all physically there. Rivets, seams, all of it. The thing about ZBrush, by the way, TJ, Kim, it feels more like actual sculpting to me. It feels like, see, I used to do actual break out the tiny little tools and mix up a little bit of green stuff and slap it onto a skeleton made of paper clips sculpting. Yeah, that's how a lot of miniatures used to be made. Is you made a skeleton out of paper clips, and you used either green stuff or milliput, and you built up from the inside out. You know, the muscles, and then the sin, and then the clothing with like you take a thin noodle and smooth it in to make the cuff for your short sleeve, which is very similar to what I'm doing in ZBrush, isn't it? You might make a tool for making scales so that you can, which is very similar to what I'm doing with that alpha, isn't it? I never have much luck with oven-baked clay. Oven-baked clay works for some type of miniatures, including larger figures like ogres and trolls. It doesn't hold enough detail for actual human scale figures. Anyway, it is 9:21. I've done what I expected to do tonight, and it took me almost my usual amount of time. Milliput, the difference between green stuff and milliput. Both are two-part epoxies that will cure with or without the presence of heat. And both will work underwater. Except milliput sucks for anything that is not hard-edged. It's crumbly. If you are making a sword, however, milliput rolled flat and then cut in the shape, and then let it cure, sand the edge. It is so much better for keeping hard surface edge than green stuff ever could imagine. But green stuff is so much better for organics and almost everything else that's not hard surface. That's why if you go in and look at, you know, these are some upcoming miniatures from Games Workshop or whatever company, you'll end up seeing something that looks a bit like this. That is a miniature made with green stuff. Now you'll notice that the edge of her shield and the blade of her sword are not green. They're made from yet another variant. It's made by the same company as green stuff. It's a bronze color that has a much shorter polymer chain, so it's easier to sharpen. And again, takes hard edge better. So this is then, because it can take heat pretty well, they take this and they put it and they can rubber mold from it, and they vulcanize that mold while the original is still in there. So that way it doesn't compress. Yeah, Games Workshop miniatures are even more expensive than you would think anymore. They're worse than they ever have been. I saw yesterday at game night a sprue, a single sprue, this big, for $25. A single daggum sprue. Like, good God. For the cost of 3 figures. 3! I could get enough resin to go ahead and print 50 or 60 figures. Oh no, it was a full character model. But I'm thinking, you know, I sculpt things like this now. Again, it's not gonna... This is one of the figures from Danny's you notice I broke the sword by accident. Yeah, I sculpt things like this. Why the hell would I pay $25 for a plastic sprue? My friends know that they don't need to spend that much, unless it's strictly for tournament play. Yeah, he's over at the other end of the bookcase now. Heck, I got a friend of mine who's using this one. I mean, y'all remember this one. This is the first one that they showed of the Dragonborn from this set. A friend of mine's using this one as his player character, and just because I made it. And yes, the shield is separate. Yeah. So, showing you how I make and save the figures. After I get done tonight, I'm going to be adding the scimitar left and right, and the submachine gun left and right, to the files that I have for the Master level. So, whether you use Blender to model in, whether you own a higher end modeling program, whatever, play around with it. Load in the figure, you know, use one of the existing, if you have to, take one of the existing props and export it as an object, just to get an idea of placement, where it needs to be, how it needs to be oriented. I will confess, the arms are at a 45-degree angle down. That was deliberate, yes. Play around with making your own props and see what how it looks if you print out something with a more slender blade. I mean, I made a figure. He's not fully painted yet, but he's in the process. I printed out the rapier. The rapier is visibly thinner than... Oh, where's somebody with a good old... Oh, what the heck? It's visibly thinner and longer than the Fantasy Viking style sword. And it's got the cross guard and fancy bell guard there. But play around, see what you can do, see what you can make. Because the more you can do, the closer you can get to your characters, the more fun it is. Is there anything that y'all would like to see me cover in one of these? Because if not, I'm probably going to go ahead and just take my small little... Excuse me, hiccups. Ow. I'm probably going to take my little the goblins and put them on hold for a few because we started a new game last night. The old campaign was over and we're starting up Dragon Heist Waterdeep. And from there we're going to be moving into the Mad Gods dungeon. So we created new characters, and I'm probably going to make those characters simply because, well, it's my gaming group. I realize, but there are some perks to being in my gaming group, you know. But you'll get to meet the characters. Like I've already sculpted the character I'm playing. You know, before, this was who I was playing. A silver dragonborn druid with white scale paint. But now, I am playing... Where's my eye? Yeah. Him. And a high elf fighter with long sword and short sword who's on his way to being an eldritch knight. Oh yeah, I'm doing my usual schedule. Just that Tuesday and Thursdays I'll be doing the characters from my D&D game. And Sundays will be the usual Patreon sculpts. Oh, good lord. The younger me... if I had access to a way to make molds, the younger me would have immediately started trying to make a company printing miniatures. If you have no group to game with, are you in a small town? Because there is no such thing as a large town without a gaming group. Because I don't care where you are. I'm in Memphis, Tennessee. You know, down here to the southwest corner of Tennessee. And I'm in gaming group, and I know several other gaming groups. There's a lot of gamers down here. So you could probably find some gaming groups if you just, just look through Facebook. There's Philadelphia. Oh, Family, Job, and Dogs. Okay, that tells me that, yeah, okay. Then why don't you get your family gaming? I mean, imagine if your wife is telling you, look, I want to go game tonight. Okay. Well, anyway, it is 9:30. I'm going to go ahead and call it a night. And so I'm going to go ahead, come up and refresh that page. And Well, anyway, I'm going to go ahead. I'm going to hold up my hand. And I'm going to do my usual 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 thing. And, yeah, head on out. And I will see you all on Sunday, where I should have 2 Patreon sculpts. And I have no clue what they're going to ask me to make. Okay. So anyway. 5, 4, 3, 2, and a 1. Lag.